It's 6 p.m. on Friday here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. And these are the top stories we're following at this hour. One of Japan's most conservative newspapers adds to the mounting pressure on Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to include an apology in his upcoming statement commemorating the end of World War II. One of Korean Parliament kicks off its August extraordinary session, but pressing issues, including resolving the recent spy agency scandal, remain for debate. And Donald Trump takes center stage at the first GOP presidential debate of the 2016 season. For the first time ever, one of the most widely read conservative Japanese newspapers has urged the Shinzo Abe administration to apologize for the country's past wartime atrocities in his August statement. An editorial in the Yomiuri Shimbun on Thursday stated that Abe must include a phrase that apologizes to the victims of Japan's invasion. Other newspapers, including the Tokyo Shimbun and Nihon Geizai Shimbun, echoed this sentiment, saying that Abe's statement should be apologetic in tone regarding its wartime aggression. And calls are not just coming from inside Japan. U.S. officials are urging Abe to sincerely apologize for the atrocious crimes Japan committed during World War II. This comes as a panel advising Abe on his August statement has told him to mention Japan's wartime aggression in his address. Our Connie Kim reports.
Face history and apologize for its past atrocities. This is what U.S. lawmakers are urging the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to include in his upcoming statement marking the 70th anniversary of World War II this month. In a commentary to Seoul-based Yonhap news agency, Congressman Mike Honda said Thursday, Abe should not miss the opportunity to apologize to women tortured by Japan during wartime, especially as time is running out for the few remaining survivors. Congressman Charles Rangel echoed the sentiment, saying if Abe acknowledges Japan's historical wrongdoings in his statement, it'll affirm the administration's pursuit for peace and human rights issues. The newly adopted so-called Comfort Women Resolution by the Chicago City Council adds weight to such growing voices. The resolution, to be delivered to the Korean American community this month, calls on the public schools in Chicago to take action to educate students about the issue when covering World War II. More than 200,000 women, mostly Korean, were forced to serve the Japanese military at comfort stations in the early 20th century. There are indications that Japan will acknowledge its historical wrongdoings, as only 2 members of the 16-member panel advising Abe on his statement are said to have opposed to the idea of using the word aggression in the statement. Whether or not the Japanese leader will walk the path of peace and reconciliation remains to be seen, as his statement is set to be released on August 14th. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Times are changing in North Korea. Well, the time is changing, rather, as Pyongyang decides to push back its standard time 30 minutes in a move to erase remnants of Japan's colonization. Seoul says the move will result in confusion for inter-Korean ties. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
South Korea's Unification Ministry said Friday that Pyongyang's move to push back its standard time by 30 minutes will bring confusion to several aspects of inter-Korean relations, including the timetables at Kaesong Industrial Complex, jointly run by the two countries. The ministry added that in the long run, it could negatively affect inter-Korean integration, standard consolidation, and efforts to recover the homogeneity of the two Koreas. The response comes after North Korea announced on Friday that it will push back its standard time to mark the 70th anniversary of liberation from Japan. Korea's Central News Agency reports that North Korea's clocks will be pushed back 30 minutes starting on August 15th. The agency added that the decree was promulgated by the Supreme People's Assembly on Wednesday, and that the cabinet and all government organizations will follow through. The KCNA says the decision was made because it considers standard time to be one of many unpardonable crimes committed by the Japanese imperialists. Currently, the two Koreas are in the same time zone. Experts say the North's decision is an effort to erase any remains of Japan's colonial rule. Japan occupied Korea from 1910 to 1945 before gaining independence after Japan's defeat in World War II. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
And a North Korean expert says last month's tightly controlled local elections in the reclusive regime helped to solidify Kim Jonguns' grip on power. Writing for the U.S.-based website 38 North, Alexander Monserov said the elections gave Kim the opportunity to reshuffle and replace officials loyal to his father to those who suit his own preferences and priorities. The North says voter turnout stood at 99.97%, with everyone voting for the single candidate put forward by the ruling party. The expert says Kim replaced around 55% of the local delegates at last month's election. Shifting gears, the August extraordinary session began today, but with the two biggest parties refusing to budge on a number of major issues, this session and a key parliamentary inspection of the government set for September could end up yielding very few results. Our Park Ji-won has the details.
This month's assembly session has started, but the rival parties have still yet to agree on a specific timetable as they remain at loggerheads over a number of pressing issues. Given the lack of scheduling, the August session looks set to be another grind. The main sticking points are the surveillance allegations surrounding the spy agency and the redrawing of electoral districts for next year's general elections set for April. The latter being particularly urgent, the National Election Commission has requested the Assembly complete the redistricting process by August 13th, as the nation's election law states that new constituencies should be confirmed 6 months before the general elections. The ruling Saenuri Party rejected the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy's latest proposal on the matter. The NPAD suggested a region-based proportional representative system in exchange for accepting the ruling party's proposal for an open primary system of selecting candidates. But with the Saenuri Party rejecting that proposal, the parties will have to go back to the drawing board. Reforming the nation's labor market is another potential flashpoint for this month's session. In line with President Park Geun-hye's speech on Thursday, the ruling party has vowed to support the administration's plan to make the labor market more flexible. It hopes to finalize the reforms by the end of the year through the nation's Tri-Party Commission of Labor, Management and Government. However, the NPAD hopes to discuss the matter within a new committee, one not only aimed at labor market reform but also overhauling the management structure of Korea's family-run conglomerates. This month's extraordinary session was convened with the aim of approving the government's budget settlements for last year, as well as approving a number of economic-related bills. The need to prepare for the parliamentary inspection of the government that will take place for 20 days next month was another big reason for the opening of this month's session. However, given the current political climate, it seems likely that the standoff between the two parties will spill over into September's regular session. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
It looks like public workers in Korea will have to work harder than before if they want to earn a little extra money and potentially climb up the career ladder faster. Performance-based incentives are likely to be expanded in the public sector as part of President Park Geun-hye's drive for major economic reforms. Our Han Da-eun has more.
Lack of efficiency and productivity have been a chronic problem in Korea's public sector, where the wage system is based on seniority rather than performance. But a change may be in the works. Following President Park Geun-hye's address to the nation on Thursday, the Ministry of Personnel Management said it's pushing for an expansion of performance-based incentives for public workers. President Park, during Thursday's speech, emphasized the need to reform the current wage system in the public sector to make it more flexible and merit-based. The ministry told Arirang News that the current performance evaluation system for civil servants is divided into 4 grades, S, A, B, and C, but a double S will be introduced for the top 1 to 2% of workers that exhibit outstanding performance. Workers receiving a grade of SS will be paid 50% more than the current bonus for a grade of S. Employees that perform below average will be relocated to a department deemed more suitable. Experts believe the work harder to earn more drive will provide the incentive for Korean public workers to increase productivity. The Personnel Ministry says talks are underway with the Finance Ministry on the issue of budget allocation. When the talks are finalized, the new incentive system will officially take effect by the end of this year. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
We reported yesterday the Korean government announced its plans to revise the tax law and compared the rest of the world. Tax collections in Korea are lower on average. Our Shin Se-min has the details.
Koreans are paying less taxes on average compared to other countries. The International Monetary Fund says Korea's tax-to-GDP ratio was around 17.9% as of 2013, lower than the world's average of 18.8%. Korea ranks 84th out of 157 countries researched. African country Lesotho posted the highest tax-to-GDP ratio of over 50%, closely followed by Denmark, a northern European country known for its social welfare. The UK, Canada, and the United States ranked higher than Korea, while in Asia, Vietnam and China fell at 18%. Kuwait recorded the lowest tax-to-GDP ratio of less than 1%, along with other oil-producing Middle Eastern countries such as Bahrain, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. And experts say oil-rich countries don't necessarily need to collect taxes, as the natural resources allow them to secure enough finances, lessening the burden on their people. But the experts add, while it's good to know how other countries are doing in terms of collecting taxes, that information can only go so far.
Different countries have their own way of governing, so it's difficult to compare whether it's good or bad depending on the amount of taxes being collected by their people.
Meanwhile, the new tax code proposed by Korean government has to be approved next month by the National Assembly. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
People born with genetic diseases often have to endure the conditions for their entire life without much hope of getting any better. One of those diseases is hemophilia, but Korean scientists may have found a way to fix the disorder by correcting the gene causing it in the first place. Song Ji-sun tells us more.
Hemophilia is a genetic disease that causes patients to bleed uncontrollably as their blood lacks coagulating agents that regulate blood clotting. Over 400,000 people suffer from this disease in the world, and there's currently no cure for the disorder. Hemophilia A is the most common form of the disease. It's caused when an inversion of a particular gene occurs at birth. However, in a possible breakthrough, Korean researchers have found a way to fix this irregularity. Using a type of genetic scissors, scientists cut the inverted gene and correct it so it takes the right position. They then transplant the gene into cultivated stem cells. Tested on mice, those given the fixed gene live twice as long as those without it.
Nearly half of all hemophilia patients suffer from severe symptoms, and half of them have the disease because this gene is inverted. We believe this technique could be applied to other forms of the disease that are derived from a similar mutation.
While many more studies need to be done, clinical research on humans could begin within the next 10 years. The gene correction procedure could replace the medication-based treatment for hemophiliacs, which requires regular injections throughout a patient's lifetime. The research was published in the July online edition of Cell Stem Cell. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now to the latest on the U.S. presidential race that's now 15 months away. The first GOP presidential debate of the 2016 season was held in Cleveland, Ohio on Thursday local time, where 10 leading Republican contenders try to capture the attention of voters tuning in. Remaining at the top of the polls after the cutoff showdown is real estate mogul, politician, and celebrity Donald Trump. He overwhelmingly took center stage as he traded barbs with his rivals and induced both loud cheers and jeers from the audience. Former Governor of Florida Jeb Bush is Trump's biggest rival and gave solid performance, but failed to trump the unexpected frontrunner. The Democratic race is set to begin on October 13th in Nevada with a debate night hosted by CNN. that brings us to the end of our newscast. More updates coming up at 10 p.m. Korea time, so stay tuned and goodbye for now.